Welcome back to another podcast, guys. Welcome to the podcast, Chuck. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, Rich, and I want to tell you it is my honor to be interviewed by you. You also have a vast amount of useful information for people who are looking for it. So on behalf of everyone, and because we wind up moving a lot of these people, on behalf of all of us, thank you for doing such a great job and for giving people such a realistic view of what it's like to be here at Lakeside.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you. My pleasure.
Sure.
Chuck has a removal company that's helping foreigners, expats, relocate here to Mexico. So I really wanted to bring Chuck onto the podcast so you could meet him. You can get a feel for what he does, and I wanted him to talk about his services, talk about all the people that he's helped, the difficulties that he's come across working in a foreign country, because Chuck's from the US, and we'll find out. Don't worry, guys. We're going to ask Chuck loads of questions. Why he decided to come to town, start a business. It's not easy, starting a business in a foreign country and helping foreigners, expats relocate here to Mexico. So tell me,
yes.
right at the beginning, what made you want to come to Mexico in the first place?
Yeah.
What was your motivation to set up a business that helps expats relocate to Mexico?
And I guess it started out probably about 5 years ago. We were living in Arizona, very happily living there, but we decided we wanted something different. I've always been very, very interested in what it would be like to live in a foreign country. And we had investigated Panama to a certain extent, Belize, Portugal, and so forth. It just never dawned on us that we would even try Mexico, even though we'd been to Mexico many times. It's right across the border. I guess because of the press or something that was just never stated, it just never occurred to us. So we figured, you know what? Let's try it. So what we did is we sold our house in Arizona. We put everything that would not fit into a large white van into storage, or we gave away.
Is that the one that I've just seen?
It's the one that you...
The white van, a huge white van he's just pulled into the car park in.
Yeah, we still have that huge white van. My wife can stand up in the back of it. The reason is my wife likes her stuff, which sort of ties into the story a little bit later. So what we did is we put the 2 dogs, our stuff, and we set out to go drive through Mexico. We really spoke almost no Spanish. We didn't know 100% where we were going, what we were doing. We just wanted to try out various different expat locations and, quite frankly, see what happened. So we crossed at Mexicali, which is near the border and near San Diego. We drove all the way down through Baja, which, by the way, if you've not done it, is magnificent, especially the eastern side, the Sea of Cortez side. Okay, so what we did is we spent 8 months traveling through Mexico. We stopped in a little fishing village just south of La Paz in Baja California. We took the ferry across in order to go to the mainland of Mexico. We spent time in Nayarit. We spent time near Puerto Vallarta. And then we came over here right in the middle of the summer when it's very, very hot at the beach, which is fine for some people. But we rented a house over in Jocotepec, which we couldn't spell or find or know anything about, but we wound up getting here. And we got here late at night. And I remember the next morning, I woke up, looked outside, and I saw that mountain right over there. And there were some clouds over the top of it.
Mount Garcia.
Mount Garcia. We didn't know at the time, right? And I was just blown away. Essentially couldn't speak. I had to say, come here and take a look at it. It's amazing. Because not only is it a beautiful place, but we had sort of cheated nature and that we're in the middle of the summer and yet we're in this beautiful place where the weather was just perfect. So we spent some time there. We spent some time in the village over in Ajijic. We went to San Miguel. We went all the way down to the border with Belize. That took about 8 months, different places. And while we were down there, my wife said, what are we doing here? Let's go back to the place we like, which was here. So we drove all the way back over here. And then we had to get our household goods because we decided we liked it here.
So that's the beginning. It was an 8-month trip around Mexico, down to the border of Belize.
Yes.
And then figuring out where you like to be.
Yeah, or if we liked it at all.
Or if you liked it at all.
Right.
And then you're like, well, let's go back to Ajijic because of Mount Garcia.
Well, because of
because of that magical moment.
Oh, that magical moment certainly set it off right. But we went hiking. There's all sorts of different things that we did. And it just seemed like such a great place. It's a place that we wanted to get to know a little better.
I mean, I can see where this story is going, guys. Yeah. I'm kind of, because I didn't know this before. We've been talking for a few years, and I've been meaning to get him on the podcast. I've even had clients of mine say to me, you have to interview Chuck. He's a real character. So we did it eventually. It's taken us a while.
Well, but if that's the case, now's the time, I think, if you don't mind. I think
so this is the hat. This is your business hat.
Yes.
There we go. bestmexicomovers.com. There you go. bestmexicomovers.com.
Well, now that we're talking about Best Mexico Movers,
so I have to wear it, right?
You must wear the hat.
There we go, guys. Following the story, you had no idea of how to move things down to Mexico. Is that right?
We had no idea anything about moving whatsoever. So my wife desperately wanted her household goods. We had a lot of household goods. So I did what everyone does. Started out. I asked her to go get some estimates. And 1 week went by, then 2 weeks went by. I finally had to ask her, what's going on? I know you want your goods here, and yet I don't see anything. Well, what it turned out, Rich, is that she was afraid to show me the estimates because she thought that when I saw how much money it was, I would say no, which I may have. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part is there was like 9 pages of do's and don'ts, which at the time I had no idea what it was about. Turned out later it had to do with the menaje de casa, customs clearance, all that type of stuff. Well, this was in English. However, It was clearly very old. Some of it no longer applied. Some of it didn't apply to us. I would go to different websites. I would get other information, which was completely contradictory to what this said. When I would call, sometimes I wouldn't exactly get a call back right away, and I would get a call maybe later, or I would talk to them. And everything was very confusing, but one thing was very, very clear. If anything went wrong at customs, it was going to be my fault, and I was going to have to pay a huge fine. So I didn't care for that very much. So I've started a number of businesses in the United States. I know how to do that. I know how to analyze an industry. So I figured I would take a look at it, and that's what we did.
Once you shipped everything, and you figured out how to ship something.
First off, it took me 8 months.
8 months, and you end up shipping your own goods.
We were the experiment.
You were the experiment. Yeah. Okay, guys.
Because what we did is we came up with a completely different way of doing it than other people did it. And it may sound okay in theory, but I've been involved in enough businesses before which stuff sounds good in theory, and when you put it into application, not so great. So it only made sense we would do our own first, which is what we did. We did a video of it. It's the only video that we have.
Don't worry, guys. I'll put a link in the description if you want to see that video that they did of them moving from Arizona to Mexico.
Right. And you could see at the time, we had no idea if it was going to work. We hoped it would work. We thought it would work. Had every reason it would work, but we didn't know. So it turned out that it did work. That was the beginning. That was a little more than 3 years ago. And since then, you were asking me how many people we've moved. We've moved over 200 families since then. And we have
3 years. That's not bad going, huh? 70 families a year.
We started out with nothing, and people just heard about it. Even though it's not really relevant to what we're talking about, we don't just move here. We move people throughout Mexico, many different places. So it started out with nothing. Nobody knew who we were. We had no advertising. People heard about it, and we just went from there.
Wow. Well, great story. And from you figuring out how to move your belongings down after, being away for 8 months, traveling around Mexico, discovering Mexico, figuring out where you want to be. And then from that, your company was built.
That's right.
That's fantastic.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And some of it at the beginning, you sort of learn a little bit as you go on. But the key is if you're focused on providing value to the client, if you're focused on a genuine want, just like you have, to really help people in a transition type of their life, when they're a little bit vulnerable, they don't know really what's going to happen, maybe they don't speak the language, they don't understand the custom, they've wanted to do this. There's all these different things coming on which can make it very stressful. And yet, if you can be a positive influence in that time of their life, just like you are, and I know you do this because I talk to people who you move and so forth, and I know what you do, that's a real honor for us to be able to do that. And we look at it that way, and that's how we treat our clients, and I think that's probably how it grew. From time to time, there's problems, just like there is in any business. With our business, maybe there's more opportunities for problems because we have more moving parts. But the key is a genuine desire to want to help people at a time in their life where what you do will sort of set the tone for their life going forward. So we love that.
Give me the three most common questions that you get asked from clients, from people that contact you. There must be like a couple that users go overnight and I wish I recorded the answer to that, or had a video for it and I could send them the video.
Well, we do have that. We have FAQs on our website, which has the answers to the most common asked questions.
The website's here, guys. Just click on the. You see the website in the description is the link. Yep.
Right, and also on that we have our moving guide to Mexico. It's absolutely free. They download it, which goes over not only just moving your household goods, but also other tips, advice, helpful things you should know about moving to Mexico. Things that we learned over the time that we were here and we help other people with, and we're happy to share. It's absolutely free, whether you use us or don't use us or use another person or do it yourself. They're all there, and we hope that you please take advantage of it.
So is it a downloadable PDF?
Yes. Yep.
There you go, guys. Download it, print it out.
We started the company because it's the experience that we had, and the things that we wanted to help other people with were very similar to what we went through. So people generally call up, they say just help in general. What's this all about? And that's usually where we start. So everyone needs help, and that sort of ties into the question I get most often in addition to that, which is, why can't I get the same answer to the same question twice? And that's true. I didn't either. There's a reason for that. And that is, in Mexico, as opposed to the United States, the rules change much more often, and they're not uniformly enforced. So as an example, the process that you may go through to move your household goods through Laredo or San Diego is different than the process that you would use through El Paso, and vice versa. And perhaps it was different 2 years ago than it is now. Or maybe there are some other differences in the move which would create some differences to the answers that most people ask. But that's because the people that are answering for themselves. It would be like if you saw that I had a problem with my back and you said, oh, I've had that, I know how to fix that, but it has nothing to do with my problem. So that's one of the reasons that people call us, is because they keep on getting different answers, not necessarily incorrect for the people who gave the answer, for the time that they gave it, for the procedure that they used, but incorrect nonetheless for the people who were moving. So it's just like you said, Rich, the first thing we do is we listen to what they have to say, and then we apply the knowledge that we have acquired on the differences to their specific situation, and they come up with a move that makes sense for them. None of this is intellectually difficult. There's just a lot of different rules for different places. You have to understand it. And once you understand it, just like you were saying, we create a checklist essentially, and we just execute off the checklist. We have people that will help. We have people who have done this before. And your move will be a lot different than other people's move, but we create a checklist specific to the client. And then it's actually fairly straightforward, and it removes a huge amount of generalized anxiety. The anxiety where you know you're anxious, but you don't really know why, because you don't know what the answers are, because you do know the answers. And then we're there for them all the way through. That sort of goes to what you were talking about earlier on how your clients told you that we held their hand. That's really sort of part of it. And you cannot force people into a one-size-fits-all. You could, and most of the time it would work. However, what would happen if you did that, if you forced everyone to do it the same way, which is what most movers do, the cost goes up, because it may not be efficient to do it this particular way. There's various ways to do it. There's various places to clear your household goods. There's various size trucks to use. There's a lot of different things to do. And we designed our company from the beginning to have the flexibility to take advantage of that, so we could listen to them. Because if you only have one way to do it, what's the point of listening to anyone anyway? You're going to give them the same answer. Like giving everyone the same haircut. Who cares? So, but we can be much more flexible, generally speaking, by doing it this way, the way that we started from the beginning, because we started with a blank sheet before we designed our company. We can be much more flexible and therefore much more responsive. The clients are much more comfortable with their move, and generally speaking, it costs a good amount less.
What's the process?
The first thing generally we do is we ask them if they have their visa. You have to have a visa in order to move. So we talk a little bit about what's called the Menaje de Casa. The Menaje de Casa is a way in which the Mexican government allows people like us to move our used household goods to Mexico one time, tax-free. So any legitimate mover, whether it's us or anyone else, we use the menaje de casa.
So you're saying you need a visa, you need a temporary or a permanent visa to move to Mexico?
Well, in order to qualify for the menaje de casa, if you're not a returning Mexican, let's say you're an extranjero, which is what we are, right? Non-Mexicans, you need to have at least begun, not finished, but at least begun your process of getting your permanente or your temporal. Because until you have that, we cannot clear your or import your household goods into Mexico.
So the first part of the process, which is if you're a foreigner, is to start it in your country of origin with the Mexican consulate, obviously, and get that stamped,
Right.
for then to come to Mexico and finish off the process. And that normally takes about 2 months after that point.
That's exactly right. So without that, or if there's some reason they can't get that, there's nothing to talk about. Now, as far as how long it takes, let me take that one next. This is how we are quite a bit different from traditional ways in which people move their household goods. Generally speaking, what happens when people move their household goods, and many times this happens in the U.S. for long hauls as well, is when they take your household goods, they don't take it to where you think they take it. What they do is they take it to a warehouse. And what they do is they take your stuff out of the truck and they put it in the warehouse. That's called transloading. And what they do is they wait for other people's stuff to come. They take other people's stuff, they put it in the warehouse. Then what they do when they have enough for a much larger truck, they take your stuff with their stuff. That's called consolidating, and they go to the next place where they do it again. Well, one of the reasons I had to start my business is when my wife found out that that's what they do, and that half of that was going to happen in Mexico, she said, we're not doing that, which is why I had to start the business. So that goes to how long it takes. Most moving companies will give you a range. They'll say it takes between a week and 4 weeks or something like that. Ours is not the case because you're not sharing, generally speaking, you're not going to be sharing a truck with anyone else. If we were to clear, let's say in Laredo, which is where most people clear, that's your truck. We load up your items into the truck that's going to wind up coming here. And when it's in Laredo, we put your items in that truck. When it's full, we close the doors on that truck. Nobody else's items are in that truck. We put a tamper-proof seal on it, send it to the border, and as long as Customs doesn't ask us to break that seal, that's a seal that we break over here at Lakeside. So it goes straight through. That takes all of about 18 hours. So it doesn't take long at all.
So from door to door, I mean, if you're coming in, if it was already in Texas, Laredo, on the border,
right,
it could take 18 hours.
Well, you have to clear. You have
clear
to,
it 2 days.
2 days.
It's only off 2 days. It's pretty quick. That's pretty quick.
It's very quick. And we take the smallest truck that we can, put your stuff in, and it comes here and we deliver hopefully right to your house. People have different amounts that they're taking. A lot of the costs have to do with compliance in the US and Mexico and with customs clearance. Because it's not like you're just going from one place to the other. You're crossing an international border, and there's all sorts of rules and risks and ways and procedures and so forth that add cost to it. So I think that the takeaway with this is you have to think about it. However, something I think is very important and that people sometimes don't understand, and sometimes if they think about it, it does make sense to them, but they don't think about it. And that is if you bring more or less, the price does not change that much. So if you mentioned a 20-foot container and a 40-foot container. If you said, well, if I have a 40-foot container, it should cost twice as much as a 20-foot container. Not even close. It may cost 20% more. So a lot of the costs that we have as a legitimate mover, or any of the movers around here or throughout Mexico, who are legitimate movers, it's all the same. We all have the same basic costs. We all need to have costs for compliance. We need insurance. We need customs brokers. We need trucks. We need drivers. All that type of stuff doesn't change dramatically whether you have 1 box or 600 boxes like we just moved yesterday. So here's the takeaway, guys. Before you start ruthlessly giving away stuff or throwing things away because you think that it's going to drastically reduce your cost to move, please give us or give the other movers a call, because what you're going to find is that's not true. What you're going to find is that once you get to a certain point, the costs really don't change that much, and you can bring what you want. This is the part that made my wife so happy. You can bring what you want, and it doesn't cost that much more. And I have talked to people, sadly, who have called me up after they had done that because they had not talked to me previously. And they'd given away like half their stuff, and now they realize that they could have moved the rest of their items here for a very small amount, maybe 15% more, and they had to buy all new things that they didn't like, that was maybe not the quality that they want and so forth. And if they had called me earlier and we had talked about it, no obligation, or even another mover, what they're going to find is it doesn't change that much, so please get those rough costs, even if they're not exact, before you start giving things away.
When a client contacts you and you figured out what they want to send, how long did it take you to put them quotes together?
If they're in a big hurry, it could be a couple days.
There you go. A few days, guys. Of course, I'm going to leave all of Chuck's information down below in the description, guys. Feel free to call him, check out his website down below, and send him an email. All his information will be down below. Like all the things that we spoke about. I know we've just touched on it in this podcast, but if you need information, if you want any advice from Chuck about your specific situation about moving to Mexico, what it entails for you, because every move's different and every location's different wherever you're coming from. Even if you're coming from Europe, even if you're coming from England, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. Chuck can figure out the most flexible way to get your goods here in one piece and hold your hand along the process. So yes, thank you, Chuck. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. I always give the last word to my guest.
I guess the most important thing to say is, if you're thinking about moving here, come try it out first. See if you like it. If you do, there are people here who can help you. We're happy to be part of it. Obviously, Rich is happy to be part of it. And there are tons of resources here, not just us, but Lakeshore Policy Society and others. You'll be welcome, and we'd love to have you here with us.
So there we have it, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this interview. Remember to subscribe, hit that notification button, and give us a thumbs up, guys. And we will see you all in the next video. Hasta luego, amigos.